Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm good. Welcome back. We're nearing the end of Radiodays Europe Day 2. We have 2 more sessions to go, but you know that thing they say about how the best is always saved for the last. I do not think that the next 2 sessions will disappoint you. Interestingly, I was having a chat with one of our speakers, and he told me something that kind of baffled me a bit. He said audience advertising, rather, and the distraction advertising brings in our audio formatting might actually be a good thing. And I'm a little bit unsure. So I need to pay attention closely to what Mark and Sheng will have to share with us. But I'll let Lee to come on stage to introduce our next speakers.
Hello there all. Yeah, you can see me, eh? Come in. I want to have the biggest attention for distraction. So come here to let your sales grow and tell your advertiser how you can profit from distraction. We have for you 2 perfect speakers, 2 perfect researchers, one a real Radiodays veteran, Mark Barber. We are very happy to have him on stage again. Planning director from Radiocentre, who is architect of so many research pieces we all use all over the world. And he's going to tell us how advertising drives attention, even when the attention is low. And after that, we've got a Sheng song from the Ster, from the Netherlands. And he is a research director, and he did a piece of research, neuroscientific research, the magic of distraction. So don't be distracted. I want to have full attention for Mark Barber on stage.
Well, there we go, eh? That was a bit of an introduction. Radio advertising veteran, Radiodays veteran. Maybe I need a wheelchair to get up here. In fact, on that subject, Nick Goodman yesterday described me as the Joe Biden of radio. I said, well, if I'm the Joe Biden, you're the Donald Trump. So, anyway, so good afternoon, everyone. Based on the title of this presentation and Lidewij's introduction, you hopefully won't be too surprised to hear that the first half of my presentation is going to be exploring the value of attention from an audio advertising perspective. And the context for this is that 4 years after the launch of the Attention Council in 2020, and despite all of the brouhaha in between, the relationship between attentiveness and effectiveness remains unproven in my view, generating more heat than light, at least in public. So I've reached this conclusion because, from what I can see, all the evidence presented to date exploring the relationship between high attention media environments and improved advertising outcomes relates exclusively to online advertising. Now, in some ways, you can understand why attention metrics started here. The low bar set for online ad viewability was always going to play a significant role in disrupting the traditional cause and effect relationship between exposure and outcomes within pure play online media. And that concerns me because on the back of this hitherto one-dimensional evidence, attention is considered an increasingly important measure of relative value across all media, a pan-media panacea, if you like. My issue with this is driven by 3 specific considerations, which I'll quickly run through now. Firstly, attention isn't binary, either on or off. It's a limited resource and can vary from second to second, depending on how effectively we can focus on the things that matter and filter out unnecessary distractions. And this creates an additional layer of complexity within the attention value chain. For example, at what degree of attention generates optimum effects for advertisers. Now, secondly, although American ad man Bill Bernbach from DDB famously asserted that if your advertising goes unnoticed, everything else is academic, the evidence from psychology shows that this simply isn't true. In The Hidden Power of Advertising, Robert Heath demonstrates how advertising is processed very, very effectively at low levels of attention, and in this way can exert powerful subconscious emotional influence on brand preference. So placing a really heavy emphasis on prioritizing active attention may risk undermining these important longer-term advertising effects. Thirdly, different media communicate in different ways. The current emphasis on measuring attention using eye-tracking technology completely overlooks the other vital lever that advertising uses to engage consumers, which is sound. Yes, sound. In this context, it's helpful to consider how advertising which involves audio, so that's TV and radio, compares to purely visual advertising. And this is just a little bit of critical thinking, really. Put simply, if something isn't looked at, it can't be seen. However, if something isn't listened to, it will still be heard. I'll get there in the end. As part of the human early warning system, our ears are constantly open, monitoring ambient sounds to identify potential threats and feed these directly into our amygdala or lizard brain to trigger our fight or flight response. And in an increasingly visual attention deficit world, the benefit to advertisers of our always-on audio radar is that simply being heard allows ads to work their way into our subconscious and trigger changes in behavior. And we see this revealed in, so the TV marketing body in the UK is called Thinkbox. And this piece of research, Screen Life, TV advertising everywhere, showed how sound is the biggest factor in drawing people's attention back to advertising on the TV screen when they are distracted or inattentive during the ad break. Okay, that's good. This ability of audio to communicate and stimulate a positive response, even when people are concentrating on doing other things, is demonstrated in Radiocentre's Building Shelf Awareness research study. So having been passively exposed to radio ads when experiencing a car journey to the supermarket, the research found that respondents were 11% more likely to notice the radio advertised brands on the shelf, and crucially, 30% more likely to buy them. So, we've established that hearing is an involuntary, passive, and physical process. Listening, on the other hand, means to pay attention to sound, to hear something with thoughtful attention, and to give it consideration. I like to imagine that that's going on with you lot right at this moment. So the quest to understand how hearing converts into listening has spawned a whole new field of research called cognitive hearing science. I don't pretend to be an expert, but I'm going to give you some explanation. So that examines the way our minds process the auditory signals being sent to the brain. To try to explain this simply, the only way I know how, top-down processes, such as working memory, interact with bottom-up stimulus from the ears to consciously analyze what is being heard. And depending on the listening task and the listening conditions, these bottom-up and top-down processes interact at different levels in the auditory system, and contextual cues and relevant memories are also accessed to play a role in the cognitive processing of the stimulus we hear. Because we hear everything to some degree, every audio advertising impression presents a window of opportunity to communicate something to the passive hearer. It's arguable, therefore, that attention to audio is less of a media challenge to be overcome and more of a creative opportunity to convert passive hearing to active listening as widely as possible. And the broader factors involved in converting hearing to listening suggest three important creative implications for advertisers to assist this process and enhance the effectiveness of their audio ads. Firstly, the use of consistent audio brand assets such as music, voice, and brand characters allows the hearer to access relevant memories associated with the brand, to assist the listening process and enhance active engagement with the ad. This has been demonstrated in Radiocentre's Big Audio Data Mine study, a meta-analysis of over 1,000 radio campaigns, which explores the relationship between the use of specific creative features and ad effectiveness. And, as you can see from this chart, it reveals the importance of consistency in optimizing radio advertising outcomes. I'll give you a bit more on this in a little while. seamless. A veteran of radio days, but not a veteran of using this control. Secondly, audio ads that reference a listener's context or situation are much more likely to be actively processed. Radiocentre's Here and Now research study demonstrates how advertising that directly relates to tasks or activities that listeners are participating in benefits from significantly higher levels of engagement and memory processing. And further analysis reveals how these effects are so powerful, they can turn average ads into star performers. To illustrate, imagine folks, imagine you're running late on your way to work following the school run, and this ad plays out on your car radio. No, this one.
Are you in your car listening to this? Because if you are, I'm going to make a bet with you. And I'm pretty confident I'm going to win. Right, it goes, okay. I bet you're running late. All right, forget that. That's too obvious. Okay, I bet someone's cut you up already today. No? Hang on. No, I know. No, this is the one. I bet you're driving too fast at this precise moment. If a child ran out in front of you now, could you stop? Think. Slow down.
Okay, so I can tell you from personal experience how that ad achieved its objective. It was a Saturday morning. I dropped my kids, who were kids at that time, off at somebody's house, and I was driving home. I was in a bit of a rush, and this ad came on the radio, and that, "Are you in your car right now?" immediately grabbed my attention, because that's it. It references something you're doing. Are you in your car right now? It's like, yeah. And then that sort of unfolding series of bets, I bet you're doing this, I bet this has just happened, drew me in even deeper. And then it delivers that sucker punch. I bet right now you're driving too fast. My only response, I couldn't do anything else but just look at my speedometer. It was an instinctive, automatic response to that line in the ad. And of course, because I'm a very sensible bloke, I was driving well within the speed limit. But I think, what that made me realize was no other medium could have delivered that response in that moment in the same way. I think that's the power of combining audio with what people are doing. Demonstrates it nicely. So that's a little bit about context.
Are you in your car listening to this?
No. Once was enough. So, beyond relevant activities, academic studies also reveal the important role that recipient mood plays in the effective processing of advertising. So if you saw me present at the Sales Summit yesterday, you'll hopefully remember how our Generation Audio research explored 7 emotional need states that are served by audio media, each of which has a distinct mood profile. This and other data relating from the study is easily accessible and downloadable from our Audio Need States Navigator tool, shown here. It's all free, by the way. I'm not selling anything. So collectively, these different contextual factors mean that radio is uniquely positioned to provide advertisers with a broad range of opportunities to engage the attention of mass audiences using relevant context-led targeting and linked creativity. So, to summarize this part of the presentation, while a shift towards attention-based metrics is understandably desirable for visual online advertising to help compensate for the low-bar definitions of viewability, it certainly won't help advertisers get the most from audio-led media. And as this presentation has attempted to outline, with 9 out of 10 listening occasions accompanying other activities, audio attention is difficult to define precisely, and it's highly dependent upon what is being heard and how it relates to the hearer's situation. And this is supported by research which demonstrates how creative execution, rather than overt attention, is the primary driver of audio advertising effectiveness. So in this context, I'm now going to move on to Radiocentre's most recent research project, Listen Up, to give you a more nuanced perspective on effective audio creativity in a distracted listening environment. So, in a nutshell, Listen Up set out to understand the components of great radio advertising to help advertisers get heard in an increasingly crowded and visually dominated advertising landscape. The ambition was to deliver actionable learning into the role of emotion in audio advertising creative effectiveness. And the findings reveal how to create advertising that stirs the passions and, as a result, boosts both long and short-term business results. Now, the learning in Listen Up is derived from bringing together two big, distinct, and complementary audio effectiveness data sets. The first of these is System 1's Test Your Audio Creative Effectiveness pre-testing platform, which has recently been launched on the back of their successful TV creative pre-testing tool they launched in 2020. So the tool allows advertisers to predict and identify ways to improve the performance of audio ads by, as you've seen on that little video that played out, measuring human emotional response and brand recognition in real time as the ad plays out. And the data from this tool is used to create three key metrics. So the star rating predicts the potential of an ad to contribute to long-term brand growth through its emotional response that it generates. Spike rating predicts short-term effects based on how intensely listeners respond to the ad and how quickly they connect the ad to the brand. And finally, fluency is a measure of how quickly and easily the brand is recognized within the ad. Now, System 1 have been using these three metrics to evaluate TV ads for a number of years, as I said, but they lacked in-market effectiveness data to demonstrate how these measures relate to outcomes for audio advertising. And this is where Radiocentre stepped in. By providing, I'll fill the space yourself, by providing System 1 with detailed data about radio advertising effectiveness, creative impact, and media campaign information, all relating to a representative sample of 55 radio ads sourced from Radiocentre's ongoing radio effectiveness measurement program, RadioGauge. Now, RadioGauge isolates the effects of radio advertising by comparing responses among a group of commercial radio listeners to a matched sample of non-listeners. It also quantifies the impact of each creative execution using Radiocentre's proprietary 5 Eyes scoring system. And over the last 16 years, RadioGauge has built the world's largest radio advertising effectiveness database, consisting of over 1,000 campaigns in total. So providing System 1 with a broad range of higher, average, and lower scoring ads meant that they were able to compare the in-market effectiveness of radio ads with their second-by-second emotional response data and understand the relationship between the two data sets to a high level of detail, and in doing so, revealing new insight into audio creative effectiveness. So combining these rich databases meant that collectively, this study is based on detailed learning relating to 131 radio ads drawn from 13 categories, including travel, retail, FMCG, automotive, and finance, all based on a huge sample of over 50,000 UK adults. This depth and breadth of data ensures that the findings are widely applicable to pretty much all audio advertising. Got it. And finally, building on the creative coding captured in the RadioGauge database, System 1 also categorized different creative characteristics featured in the radio ads based on whether they were more likely to stimulate a left or a right brain response. Why does that matter? Well, different parts of the brain respond in separate ways to different stimulus. And that holds big implications for the way advertising works. So to give you a little bit more on that, according to the work of British psychologist Ian McGilchrist, I'm sure you know him all very well, our left hemisphere of the brain is more sensitive to dopamine, our reward for doing tasks. As such, it holds a very narrow focus on the world, very goal-orientated, and prefers things to be abstract and devoid of context. System 1's analysis suggests that the left brain response is associated more with ads built around rational messaging designed to deliver short-term sales effects. So I've gone too far now. There we go. On the flip side of the coin, or should I say brain, our right hemisphere is responsible for our broad beam attention on the world. As such, it has a preference for living things and understanding how they relate to each other. System 1's analysis suggests that right brain response is associated more with ads that generate strong emotional memories and longer-lasting brand effects. So, that gives you a little bit of background, or quite a lot of background, about what we did. What did we find out? Firstly, we looked at the relationship between the star rating of radio ads and the resultant listener response triggered by the radio campaign. For example, that could be buying the product, using it, or searching online. All of that information was sourced from our radio gauge data. And we found that radio ads with a below-average star rating experienced a fairly limited uplift in response. However, those ads with a higher than average star rating experienced significantly higher uplifts in listener response. So this suggests that advertisers should really aim to elicit a stronger positive emotional reaction to stimulate not just a long-term, but a short-term response for their brand. Secondly, trust. Now, I don't have to tell anyone in this room about how strong listener trust is towards radio. And there's also research from the UK's Institute of Practitioners in Advertising, which demonstrates how including radio in a media campaign boosts trust effects, strong trust effects for a brand. Building on this, Listen Up found that brands with a below-average fluency rating, so just to remind you, that is those that registered low brand recognition amongst the sample, experienced relatively modest trust gains, with those we feel mainly resulting from the generally trusted nature of radio as a medium. However, well-branded or fluent ads are much more likely to exploit this superpower of radio and benefit from double the brand trust effects as a result, as you can see on this chart. With evidence suggesting that many digital media struggle to build trust, this learning shows how advertisers seeking to win over consumer confidence can benefit from using radio advertising featuring distinctive audio brand assets consistently over time. And the third finding. Okay, the third finding, I believe personally, certainly from my perspective, is the most compelling and potentially game-changing from this project. So to bring this to life, I'm going to map a range of left brain and right brain audio creative features on this matrix to demonstrate how they contribute to advertising effectiveness. So the horizontal axis represents uplift in ad recall derived from radio gauge. And the vertical axis shows the degree of emotional engagement as measured by System 1 star rating. So in an ideal world, you'd aim to use features at the right-hand end of the horizontal axis. That is those that are associated with a greater memory. Similarly, in terms of the vertical axis, you'd aim to use creative features that appear towards the top. That is those that are associated with generating greater emotion. Oh, back one. Thank you, that's the one. And to try to make it easier to read, we color-coded the creative features, orange for right brain, dark blue for left brain. So let's start by having a look at how the left brain features, shown in dark blue, map on the chart. There we go, great. They're all in the bottom left-hand quadrant, or the quadrant of banality, as I like to call it, engaging the left brain with lots of repetition, technical language, numbers, and product detail. Clearly, they struggle to generate emotional response or build long-term memory structures. Now look at the right brain creative features shown in orange. These all appear in the top right-hand quadrant, or the quadrant of vibrancy, as I've decided to call it. Sounds of the living, different accents, music, drama, combined with familiarity and clarity. All perform well in terms of generating improved memory encoding and, crucially, emotional engagement. From this, we can conclude that while left brain features can be effective for short-term messaging, bringing in some of those right brain features to bolster emotional response and memory encoding could really boost these effects. Even a tactical ad can benefit from including more right brain creative features. Finally, reviewing the System 1 database in total reveals that on average, TV and radio ads score the same star rating, which, as we've already covered, predicts that the two media can deliver similar long-term effectiveness. Or to put it another way, Hey, we're all radio people here. Radio can be just as effective as TV at longer-term brand building. And this shouldn't come as a huge surprise. Thinkbox, again, launched research at the end of last year, highlighting the importance of audio in effective TV advertising. However, for the 131 radio ads specific to this study, there were minor differences between radio and TV in terms of average fluency and star scores, suggesting some room for improvement. So this raises some important questions. How can advertisers close this gap, outperform these averages to ensure they deliver the biggest bang for their audio advertising buck? Which leads us neatly on to the best practice learning we've derived from this analysis. And there are 6 elements that I've split into 2 charts. Firstly, and perhaps most fundamentally, advertising aiming for greater and longer-lasting effects will benefit from incorporating more right-brain features. Think dialogue rather than monologue, featuring people who sound real, not just a voice on a stick, speaking with different accents, and a clear sense of them being in a place where they are, not just in a studio. Secondly, create with the listener in mind. Radio Gauge data reveals how clarity of branding in ads helps generate positive emotions, so don't be shy. Make your brand prominent and as relatable as possible. Thirdly, don't zig, zag, zag, zag. Ads that stand out from the category and other radio ads get more attention and results in listeners feeling greater emotional intensity. However, it's important for audio ads to be consistently distinctive. That is, sounding different from other brands, but consistently sounding like themselves. Fluent devices are the answer. Distinctive audio brand assets, such as brand characters, voice actors, music and jingles, when used consistently, are things that make your brand sound like your brand. Yeah, speaking of consistency, ensuring audio ads are consistent with ads used in other media used in your marketing mix also boosts long-term effectiveness by building stronger memory structures. You'd be surprised, or probably not, by how many advertisers don't leverage recognized straplines from other media in their radio or audio advertising. Underpinning this learning, Radiocentre's brand multiplier study from a few years back explored how effectively radio grows mental availability for a brand when used alongside TV advertising, featuring a consistent audio creative approach. Next, embrace the power of music. Music brings audio ads to life by attracting attention and creating emotion. Using music generally causes a huge jump in long-term effectiveness. However, melodic music is far more powerful than repetitive, rhythmic soundtracks. So think about music that listeners can easily hum along with to help create those easy-to-recall earworms of them. This builds on previous learning from Radiocentre on the benefits of consistent use of music within campaigns. And finally, brand early and often to benefit from trust effects. Without the advantage of visual cues, introducing the brand's distinctive audio assets into the ad earlier, ideally within the first few seconds, and then repeating throughout can help listeners process the ad more effortlessly. Now, this doesn't mean just repeating the brand name again and again and again. No one wants to hear ads like that, but we probably all have in our time. But instead, this is about using the brand's full suite of audio assets, be that strap lines, brand characters, voices, or music. And this can help enhance both short-term and longer-term ad effects. And finally, you'll be relieved to know that we've come to the end. I started with a takedown of the current one-dimensional attention measurement debate and explored why it's completely meaningless in an audio context. And to help achieve optimal ad effectiveness within audio's distracted listening environment, I finished with the best practice learning from our latest creative study. So that's it from me. Thanks for listening, and for those of you that weren't paying attention, thanks for hearing anyway.
Should there be slides?
Tech guys, we're waiting for Sheng's presentation to come on up.
I realized earlier I'm really testing the gods by talking to you about distraction at 4:30 in the afternoon. But I will do my best. My name is Sheng. I work at Ster in the Netherlands, and we do a lot of research at Ster. And every year we dive into a topic that is currently trending in the marketing. And the last few years, we've been looking at attention, how you can generate more attention with TV and radio ads. And what I've learned from all these studies is that we've been looking at attention the wrong way. Mark already touched upon it briefly. But yeah, attention has been a large focus in recent years. You've probably all heard of the attention economy. I do believe that it's good to look broader than clicks, so I think attention is a good metric to include. The one limitation that most of these studies have is that it's been mainly focused on visual media, TV, online, and not a lot of attention has been given to audio. We wanted to change that with our studies, and also not a lot of attention has been given to multimedia, so the combination of TV and radio in a campaign. And we also found that there's a lot of misconceptions about attention. Funnily enough, I didn't prepare this together with Mark, but the first misconception we found is that attention is often seen as something binary. Mark explained it much more eloquently than I have what this means. But he also said that audio is a good way to draw someone's attention, and that's also something we found in our study. When you ask someone to pay full attention to the ads, we found that when they listen to radio ads, the attention they have is 4.5 times higher than when you ask them to pay full attention to TV ads. So in that sense, audio is a very powerful trigger to get someone's attention back. And that brings me to my second misconception that I found. I've also seen this described as attention being something that you can lose. And to lose something means that you already have it in the basis. And especially when it comes to advertising, this is not a given. This is a result of a study by DVA Insights, and they looked at ad avoidance around the world. And this is the percentage of people that like watching attention and watch it attentively. On the left side, 13% is my home country, the Netherlands. 13% of the people really love advertising and watch it attentively. Which means most people do not seek out advertising or are enamored by it. They see it as maybe a necessary evil. And in most countries, it's less than half who really enjoys advertising. So rather than attention being something that you can lose, you should see it as attention is something you have to earn from the consumer. So with these things in mind, I think we've been looking at attention the wrong way. And especially in a world where there's so many options available to be distracted, I think instead of looking at the attention economy, I think we should look at the whole picture and look at the distraction economy. Because it's not really about getting back the attention that you lost, but breaking through the distraction that people face. And this formed the basis for our second study that we did on attention. And I would like to take you along the magic of distraction. So we did a neuroscience study together with Unravel Research, a neuro market research company. And we asked people to go to their living room laboratory where they watched 3 pieces of TV program and listened to 3 pieces of radio program. And around those, we put ad breaks. And there were 6 campaigns that we included as test campaigns. These were multimedia campaigns of different brands and different sizes. And this setup allowed us also to vary in how often these campaigns came back, either in one exposure or in all the ad breaks that we had. Now, the big key of this study is also the way we approached attention, or the way what we asked them to do. We asked half of the participants to pay full attention to the TV programs, the radio programs, and the ads around it. And the other half, we asked them to look at those pieces of look and listen to those pieces of content in a more distracted state. They had a tablet, and they could choose a game that they wanted to play while they were listening and watching the content. Basically simulating what a lot of us are doing when we're at home listening to the radio or watching TV. As I said, it was a neuroscience study, so that means we can look into their brains. And we gave them a very stylish little hat, so we could see how their attention was in their brains. And we coupled that with eye tracking. They got glasses, so we could see, for the visual part at least, what they were looking at. And lastly, we also measured the impact on the brand. So we measured what the impact was on brand recognition, brand image. Yeah, it's pretty extensive, actually. And with that out of the way, I would like to welcome you to the distraction economy and share the observations we have based on the study we did. There were 3 observations that we found. The first one is that it's a marathon, not a sprint. Second one is that watching is silver, listening is gold. Although hearing Mark, I would think I would use different terms now. Maybe hearing is gold. And lastly, divide and conquer. I will dive a little bit more deep into these. Yeah, the first one is a marathon, not a sprint. Is there anyone in the room who has ever run a marathon? Nice. I hope to join you later this year. But I think one of the key things that I learned, at least from a marathon, is that of training for it, it takes a long time, and it's a long game. You don't expect to run a marathon tomorrow, I hope. And that's also how it works in the distraction economy. So here we looked at the 2 different groups that we had, the fully focused and the distracted people, and what the effect was on the brand recognition after one effective exposure, and if they were seeing the ads in all blocks. So after one exposure, simulating a bit the short-term effects, you see that the group that was in full focus, or watching the ads in full focus, brand recognition was higher than when people are distracted. Makes sense. You can take in more brand information if you pay full attention. What we thought was interesting is after multiple exposures, so after 3 effective exposures, this pattern actually reversed. So when people are paying full attention, the effect you get on the first exposure is pretty much the effect you're going to get. When people are distracted, on the other hand, the effect starts lower or slower, but it builds up faster, and it builds up much more stronger than when you pay full attention. And this is for brand recognition, and for brand image, the effect was even stronger. So again, here you see the full focus group flatlining, basically, no matter how many exposures. And the distracted group actually grew much stronger, especially for brand image. And an explanation for this can be found in psychology. It's called the sleeper effect. Which means if you are paying full attention to something, or advertising in this case, you are also consciously thinking of reasons to debunk it, to not buy something, or if there's a slogan, you might think, is this really true? Am I really loving it? But if you're distracted, you don't have those defenses up. So after multiple exposures, it can come in basically like a samurai or a ninja, causing the effect to be much stronger. So that was the first observation we found. The second one is related to the 2 medium types that we included in this study. And because we had both, we could compare them with each other. And one of the things I've always been interested in is how do they differ in terms of attention. And we could include that in this study and also look at the effect of multiple exposures. So when you have one exposure, you see that the TV ads draw more attention than radio ads. But again, this effect flips when you take a more long-term approach. So here you see, whereas TV is the effect is immediate, you see radio needs more time to build or more exposures to build the effect, and in the long run, the effect is much stronger than for TV. So again, in terms of if you're looking at it from a sports analogy, TV you can see more as a sprinter, short but strong, and radio is more of a marathon runner, the long-term medium. I did want to talk about 3 ways to draw more attention, but I'm going to skip this because of time. If you're curious, ask me later. I will talk about it. The last one we have is divide and conquer. So because we have this is based on a result we found in the previous study, and that concerns the combined effect of TV and radio together. And what we found is that when you combine those, you can get up to 1.5 times more attention for the campaign. It just depends on the type of campaign you have and the order in which you should expose someone to these 2 media. For branding campaigns or more right-brain campaigns that are focused more on creative storytelling or building emotions, it works best to start with the audio part of the campaign, radio, and build the story, the music, the voices, more the audio part. So people are getting more familiar with that. And when they see the TV campaign, the visuals that go together with it are new, but they already have something familiar. And familiarity is a trigger to pay more attention to something. And by doing it this way, you can generate more attention, but only for branding campaigns. If you have an activation campaign or more a left brain campaign, focus more on product information or rational information, then it's better to start the other way around. So you start with the TV part, so the visual gives you more, these tend to be very information-heavy campaigns, so it's better to get, and if you see it visually, it's easier to digest. So afterwards, when you move on to radio, people remember what they saw, so that triggers a memory and causes them to pay more attention to it. So radio can be used as either a campaign booster for the branding part or a more cost-efficient campaign extender. And the setup allowed us to dive a little bit deeper into it. So we could compare different levels of exposure to the effects. So we could make one group that had low exposure to each, one group where in one medium had a higher exposure than the other, and one group where everyone was exposed to everything all the time. And we looked again at those 2 objectives and those 2 different types of campaign. And we found for a branding campaign what worked best, big surprise, a lot of exposure on everything. This has, of course, a downside that it's a very expensive tactic to do, and luckily we found that a second strategy also worked really well, and that was focused on radio. So if you have a standard TV campaign and you follow it up with a large radio campaign, when you have a branding, especially if you're a smaller brand, the effects are also quite strong. For activation campaigns, more focused on for sales, we found out that here helps to make a choice in which medium you put the most weight. And here the best strategy was also to do a standard TV campaign and then a larger radio campaign. So here also radio is a good way to generate more activation. But also another strategy was to focus more on TV and then have a smaller radio campaign. So here, for more activation, it helps to really make a choice. So those were the 3 observations we have based on the distraction economy. So it might take a long time before you see some effects. Yeah, the effect radio is an important part to generate that effect, especially if you want to go the long way. And yeah, based on the strategy you have, it's best to divide and conquer based on what your goal is. And with that, I hope you enjoy breaking through the distraction.
Thank you very much, Sheng. We don't have time to take questions, sadly, but if anyone wants to have a conversation with him and Mark, I'm sure you can catch them in the next couple of minutes. We have one final session to end the day, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing everyone at 5 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.